Hey, what's going on, guys? Komegigins here. In this video I'd like to share some sort of an insights I have obtained by exploring a single YouTube video thumbnail, believe it or not. So here is the deal. When you do learn how to build sentences in Korean, when you have an idea regarding the kind of like grammar structures, some basic core elements like particles, word order and things like that, it feels like, and if you also add some vocabulary words you've already learned, it feels like you actually can start building your own sentences and even talk them aloud, and it seems like you're now able to express your thoughts in Korean. However, it turns out that the direct translation of a thought that you came up with in English, when you do translate this into Korean, it might sound weird because the way how Koreans think and the way how Western consciousness kind of formulates the thoughts is totally different. And that's the reason why I'm trying to obtain the knowledge in regards to some sort of a specific use cases for certain words or phrases or topics, like topic vocabulary words, how to form this all together from the actual native Korean speaking sources. And what I've realized so far, that there are really lots of things that they don't actually teach you in the online courses, like online Korean courses, no matter whether they are free or paid, because the subject of the courses is too different from the real world kind of stuff. And I can also say this from my English learning perspective in the past, because when I've been sticking to things like actually kind of they teach you at school or things like that, it doesn't really introduce you to the real English speaking world, right? However, when you actually start acquiring some content in the language that you're learning, it becomes really helpful in terms of in order to start sound naturally like native speakers do, even if it's not the matter of pronunciation, still like the grammar patterns, like the phrases, the overall structure of speech, the flow, all this stuff. So this is very important. And the same thing is applicable to Korean as well. And what I found absolutely fascinating, actually this morning, is that we can learn not only from like K-dramas or K-pop songs or like Korean content that is kind of a little bit too complicated and too overwhelming for beginners like me, right? So I just can't acquire that because it's kind of a little bit too much. However, I found an incredible resource for revealing some hidden grammar patterns, and this resource is YouTube video thumbnails, believe it or not. And this is so fantastic that I decided to make this little video to share my kind of grammar insights I came up with by having a look at this only kind of poster, like YouTube thumbnail. So this is just the thumbnail for a video that is dedicated to this, that very intense guys do the girls love. And in Korean this would be 여자들이 심코하는 남자 행동 열쇠하지. And yeah, I'm sorry, I'm not reading good when I'm reading this for the first, second, or before 10 times reading this. So 여자들이 심코하는 남자 행동 열쇠가지. Okay, so here it is. And again, like this little piece of text has blown my Korean grammar understanding away completely. And without further ado, let's actually start it. So I decided to start with just typing in this kind of words and to see what actually Google Translate would tell us in this regards. So the literal translation by Google Translate is 13 man's behavior, the women heartbeat. And it sounds really weird because we don't say like this in English. So we would say like 13 man's behaviors that makes women's hearts beating, or women's hearts beating faster, or invokes women's heartbeat, or like at very least we could say the behavior that heartbeats women, right? I don't know, but it's saying this sort of way doesn't really feel natural in English. You agree with me? Do you agree? You agree with me, guys, right? So it doesn't really feel that natural. So I just in order to avoid typing in Korean and wasting your time by seeing how slowly I'm doing this, I just decided to put this sort of a stuff in. So we can now just duplicate this. We can duplicate the tab, and I would be pasting in the words. Well, actually, I can actually type the words in. I can type some words, paste in other ones. So let's actually start the breakdown of, well, I've counted up to 5 Korean grammar points in this little YouTube video thumbnail. So let's break them down. Let's walk through every single one in particular. I've also prepared some resources that do describe the things that I'm actually kind of talking about. So this is kind of it, and yeah, this should be for, oh man, I shouldn't scroll down. Okay, we'll come back here later. So let's start with yoja. So yoja means, in Korean, it means, well, actually, okay, just forget this. I would be typing from scratch just to showcase. So let's see the yoja. Yoja means woman, right? So it's quite pretty clear. This is a dictionary word, nothing special. And the very first grammar point I'd like to introduce is this particle de. So if we just type de on its own, it would be translated by Google as filled. And here is an interesting thing about this sort of a particle. So before actually making this video, I wasn't really that sure whether this is a particle or not. It turned out that it is a particle. And before saying anything else, I just want to find this particle within this nice howtostudykorean.com website. So have you probably been asking yourself, how can I make something in plural? Up to now, I haven't mentioned anything about plural words in Korean. The reason for this is Korean people rarely distinguish between singular and plural. Okay, so this is the core reason why you might not be encountering this sort of a particle quite pretty often, because Koreans doesn't really care that much about whether this is the single or plural, right? However, sometimes it's necessary to use this sort of a particle, and apart from making, let's say in this case we have a noun yoja, and apart from just making this sort of a noun in the plural, it should be treated like women, right? But actually it's translated as girls. So this is it. So I mean that by adding this particle, apart from making the noun woman being kind of like in plural, it also slightly changes the meaning of the word itself. And this is something that is not that easily seen, by the way. So that's kind of it. So if you're not aware regarding the Korean grammar things, and you just take this word from somewhere, paste it in, and you say like, okay, so this means girls, right? But if we just do break this down, we see that it's actually many women. But again, like in the context, this means girls. So this is the very first particle I wanted you guys to have a look at. So actually, I'll just give you a link in the description below this video, so you could have read about this particle a bit more on your own. From my side, I can say that I've already been using this. Let's say in my video on how I talk in Korean after 1 month of studying, I'm using 들 to say 문장들, which means many sentences, like sentences, not a single. So 문장 is the sentence, the single sentence, and 문장들 like many sentences, many sentences. Like I'm not sure whether that's okay to say like that or no, but I've been using this particle on my own and find this really helpful, because when you didn't yet switch from thinking in English to thinking in Korean, it might be really helpful to use it. Even though if this is wrong, still you can use it as if you just add in s to a noun, as if it was English language. So this is the first thing. The next thing, e. So e is relatively simple. So I'm sorry, it's just a subject. It's just a subject marking particle. So here I have a list of Korean particles. I will link this resource as well. So we have in topic markers, 이가 subject markers. So there are really lots of really good videos by Korean native speakers explaining the difference between these two. And just to give you a brief idea of how I understand this currently. So the idea is when we're talking about something in general, we can use 는, and when we're talking something in particular, within the context, we can use 이가. And again, like 이가 just depends with the one or another. It depends on whether the last letter, let's call it letter, is the vowel or consonant. So we have this 률 which is the consonant. So that's the reason why we use 이, and we don't say 여자들과. We use 여자들이, and this 들 이. If we say 들 이 fast, it would be 들이. So 여자들이, and then we go. So 여자들이, so means like girls, right? So girls with this object with the subject marking particle. So the subject marking particle is the next grammar point to learn from this kind of thumbnail. So let's move further on. The next thing is absolutely fantastic. So this is what I call specific use cases for word. It might be called in a slightly different manner, like we could have say, sorry, just checking out my mic. So we could have say like using a noun instead of a verb. So because it's if you want to say like girls love, then the love is actually the verb. And bearing in mind the Korean sentence building practice, they should be placed at the very end. But here we have it as the second word. So what the heck is going on here? And this is really getting confusing. However, this sort of a word, which literally means heartbeat, it's used, I would say it's used as a noun, right? And bearing in mind the topic marking particle, this 는, it says that this is kind of a noun, and the noun, like the topic marking noun, as we can say so. So this is kind of the core noun, the core concept we're talking within this entire phrase. So let's put this in first separately, and then we'll bring it all together. So if I just say shimko, sorry, typing Korean really slow. 심고나는 여자들이 심고 나는. Yeah, if I repeat this many times, it starts being really more fluent. So again, like if we just take away the particle away, so we have a noun heartbeat, and again, like just to reference the particles, we have this 는 topic marking particles. So bear in mind the fact that the last let's say call it letter is a is a vowel a. So we use 는, not in. So by adding this 는, this means that in this kind of entire phrase we're talking about, no matter what was before, no matter what would be further on, we are talking about the heartbeat. So this is the core thing, and she even makes this word love like the biggest one, right? So just the biggest kind of thing, like bold font, right? So it's really kind of eye-catchy thing. So 심고나는. So 심고나는, the heartbeat, okay? But if you just have a look at this sort of a thing, so women heartbroken. So if you just use this outside the context, the meaning is getting absolutely different from what actually here. So what girls love, but it's not about women heartbroken. By the way, you just have a look how the word girls has changed back to women. Okay, so all these tiny little details, they actually don't teach you in these online courses. But if you're a self-learner like I am, and if you're just really trying to delve deep into the language, and if you're using this kind of sources that native speakers are actually, the content they provide for, like, it's not really for learning Korean, I would say. She does have this kind of subtitles in both Korean and English, by the way, were very awesome. A learning resource, even though it's not being, but it's not positioned as the learning resource. It's just like some Korean blog, things like that. But anyway, so here's what we have. And let's move further on. So, well, namja is trivial. It means just simply man. It's, again, like, bear in mind the Korean habit not to distinguish between singular and plural sort of forms of a noun. So it's hard to say whether it's about one man, whether it's we're talking about the single man or multiple men, right? So namja, but bearing in mind the context, bearing the context in mind, we understand that it's about like both women and men in plural. However, you just know that, well, here is another hidden grammar point that I didn't include here, but it's also kind of implicitly available. So you see, like, we have the plural number for women, however, we don't have it for men. So guys do. So this might be true. So this reminds me one little thing. So this might be more like not 13 things guys do, but it also might mean in Korean it also might mean 13 things guy do, not guys do, but a single guy do. So in this case, guys is not like, so you know, here is the difference. So women or girls is like plural in terms of like girls community, like what's happening within the girls community, right? And when they talking about the guy, it's like something separate that goes outside. Well, it goes from the context of this women's blog, basically, that I've realized so far. So it's kind of like implicitly telling you that the namja, which is man, or in singular form or in plural form, it's something outside that we're talking about within this girls community. So this is something that is outside, and how to deal with that sort of a thing. So it's the matter of distinguishing between the internal and external thing. And in this case, women are more considered like to be internal thing, like the community this kind of block is spreaded within, while the man is something that goes outside, and it's like kind of something outside, something different, like maybe it's not something that like doesn't make any danger or something, but it's really like a distance away from this kind of girls community. So even with my poor Korean knowledge, when I see how this is spelled in Korean, these are the thoughts that are naturally coming into my mind, and I really kind of feel with all my heart that this is something about like how I understand this. I might be wrong in some details, but I feel that in general this is more like exactly the case. Okay, so namja hindon. So hindon is actions. So let's split this down a bit more. So if you just type in this hindon, so behavior, right? So on its own might be treated as behavior. Here it might be treated as the actions. So that's what they call like guys do. And again, like if this was a Korean sentence building practice from online Korean practice, you would be thinking like, oh my God, do means the verb. So this might be like hada. So heyo in like heyo in informal, polite, high form. It should be placed at the very end of the sentence, and you just going completely crazy. And if you will start actually building the sentence like that, it would be really weird. However, this is how simply this kind of thing could have been done. So actually, this sort of a sentence doesn't contain any single verb. However, the translation contains up to two verbs. So do and love. Two verbs, but the Korean sentence doesn't actually have any verb in it. So this is so interesting, right? So now what we have is men's behavior, the women heartbeat, and again, like from now on, this actually stops making any sense because again, like the translation itself is really weird. But if we just don't look at this kind of part that regards to the translation, and we just try to focus on the Korean part, so let's try to think like what did they mean. So we have 여자들이, so the kind of from the women's community perspective, 심구하는 여자들이 심구하는 남자 행동. So the topic is heartbeat. So heartbeat within this women's community. So something. So we're talking. The topic is something that makes women's heart beat faster. We don't have the word faster in the heartbeat, but it's absolutely clear out of the context, and it's clear out of the translation that provided by the native speaker on her own, because we know that to love means that the heart is beating faster, right? And in regards to this word heartbeat, we also can say like, okay, so we're talking about, so topic marking particle, we're talking about something that makes women's hearts beating faster. So this is the matter of how Koreans think, and it's so awesome that we can reveal this hidden patterns of thinking within YouTube video thumbnails, believe it or not. And then actually we're talking about like what actually makes the women's hearts beating faster. So actions of the men. So actions of the men that are actually making women's heart beating faster. And finally we have this 열자기. So 13 things. So I hope it's clear regarding using nouns instead verbs. So I've just covered that. And the last but not least is Korean numbers, which is very different, very interesting, and very different from what the English-speaking world used to. So there are two types of numbers in Korean, and when I first realized that, I was so confused. So we have so-called Sino-Korean, which is the mixture of Chinese and Korean numbers, like literally like Chinese names for numbers, but spelled in Korean, I would call it like that. And the use cases are prices, telephone numbers, bus, subways numbers, dates, height, weight, time in minutes and second. So can used as the standalone numbers. And the pure Korean numbers are primarily used for numerical counting things. So we do count things here. That's the reason why we're using pure Korean numbers. Counting things, age, time in hours, pure Korean numbers typically include a unit to indicate the appropriate measure. So really lots of details. And yeah, this is how I feel actually. This is how I felt when I first initially realized this sort of a thing. So here we have the Sino-Korean numbers, and these are derived from the Chinese numbers. So il, I, some, so, some, sa, o. So in Korean this would be I, R, sun, si, u, ryu, ji, ba, and so on. I don't remember. So it's really like pronounced in a very similar way. But here we need this pure Korean numbers. So we have 열 for 10, and we can copy this. So we can paste this 열 in, and also 13, so 3, set. So this S at the end we don't read that, so it's more like set, 열 set. So 열 set 자기. And here we go with our 자기 tense. And this tense is also interesting on its own. And even though I didn't include this as the grammar point, I'm sorry, did I make something horribly? 13. Did I spell? Oh, I'm sorry, not 자기. What have I done? 가지. Oh man, I'm sorry. 가지. I feel something wrong, weird. 가지. Gaji. Women make hard bit. Yeah, by the way, what did I spell wrong here? Your, yes, properly. Oh, man, I'm sorry, guys. Hold on a sec. So let's make it again. Your set. 13 branches. Yeah, this is one I wanted to have. So this gaji on its own means branch. So this is one last thing. It's not a grammar point, but another thing that I really wanted to emphasize because again, like from the Korean learner's perspective, it's not always that clear. So here I have my auto-generated vocabulary being composed automatically using some web scraping techniques based on the 5,000 most used Korean words that I've grabbed from some sort of a Korean Wikipedia like website. So here is the thing. So they suggest to use go, this S again I cannot pronounce, to say thin. Say that thin, go. So go literally means that. So this is very, very nice translation. So go. And again, like, but like, let's say we see like, okay, we got the word thin that we want to use in the sentence we're currently building in Korean, but we can't use it just like this. So the first thing that is not clear for me as a beginner, like, what the heck is this little s down below? Is this the meaning of the word, or is this some sort of a grammatical pattern then that might be used for the conjunction of the words or something? So it's really getting complicated, and when you see things like this, it makes your mind thinking that it might be something not that easy or something goes horribly wrong. So let's say if I want to say about things, the number of things, about some things. So if I want to use the word things, I had no idea how to say things in Korean, and this sort of a translation and even Google translation for things doesn't really actually make that big sense, because what actually should the actual Korean word gaji that should be used when we're talking about things is actually literally being translated as branches. However, even this branches is not the exact kind of way of translating things, because the actual written stuff here is bungi. So bungi is branch. So gaji is not a branch, but for some reason Google does this sort of a thing, which is absolutely misleading, annoying, and confusing. And actually, gaji is eggplant. What the heck is this, right? So you're really getting confused. So here is the actual word that you want to use when you're talking about things, right? But you actually can't come up with a proper way of how to say things, in case if you're using, say, Google Translate or some other dictionaries, right? Well, probably some Korean-based like Naver. Probably they do this a bit better. I didn't yet test them. Probably I should have go for that. But it's really annoying, like, that we can't get the proper word to translate a certain very concrete thing that we're talking about, right? So here it is. So actually, this branch turns like here it's not translated at all. You see, like, it's not being translated at all. And here, so did I spell something wrong? It just goes, no, Google makes some weird things. It translates to 13 kinds of men's behavior that women have a heartbeat. Well, the translation is a bit better. So let's actually drop this pure Korean number and use just the numeric 13. And here we got the eventual phrase. Okay, guys, so I just wanted to give you an idea, like, what kind of things I'm trying to make emphasis on as the Korean learner myself. So it turns out that this native Korean speaking sources, even in this kind of format of YouTube video thumbnails, might come extremely helpful, because from now on, just having a look at this sort of a single thumbnail I really know so many things that I can use in my sentence building practice in future. So I can now say things. I know that I should use pure Korean number when I do this. What else? I know that if I want to talk about things that girls love, I need to use the word heartbeat, because again, like the literal translation for love would be saran, and this is what you can come up with. The Google Translate's assistant, so it would be like saran, love. Okay. If we want to turn this to verb, we can add ha, and to make it a dictionary form, it would be saran hada, like this. And if we want to conjugate it to the present form, we can use this like saranhi, but it would already translate as I love you, because it kind of like clear out all the context. But as far as we don't have any context here, this translation might not always be making that big sense, right? Because if you say this in conversational, then it's okay, but again, like in the written form, this might be totally different. So this translation is not something that you can be relying on. So again, like, so we don't use this word that actually is literally translated as love, but it's like Koreans actually using the word heartbeat when they trying to say about things that they love, right? But actually something that makes their hearts beating faster. Okay, guys, so I really hope that this sort of insights that I came up with so far using this native Korean speaking content, this content from the native Korean speakers, I hope you find it really exciting and useful, because for me personally, this is incredibly useful resource. And apart from doing the traditional like stuff like learning grammar, like building up my vocabulary and things like that, I really do acquire lots of things from this kind of sources. And again, like by the time when you're not yet able to acquire some knowledge from the content itself, like if you just listen to this, you don't understand anything, you can't read that well yet, you don't really know that enough words, but this sort of thumbnails might be extremely helpful. And I've been working out a few already. I just wanted to share someone that I was the most excited by. But really, lots of thumbnails is incredible free resource to improve your Korean in terms of revealing the thinking patterns of the native speakers. Well, okay, guys, this is it from my side. I hope you've enjoyed the video. Hope to see you in the next one. Until that time, and take care.